All right, I'm in your hands. Whatever you would like to do. What would you prefer to do? Do you want to go to signs, or would you like to go to Homestar?
Let's get the grunty ones out of the way.
I'm in your hands, so whatever you
Let's
would like
get the grunty ones out of the way.
Okay, so Homestar it is. I'm directed by the people here. What page is that, Regina?
I just have to find it.
Oh,
Is that this one? Is it here? Okay. So of the spiral bound document, page 117.
117 in the spiral bound.
Statement of expectations, reduced regulation recommendation.
Oh, go ahead.
Actually, it starts suggesting 6-star, and then when they came back, there was obviously some controversy about it at the hearings panel, but obviously it stayed in here.
okay, so when we put forward the draft to you for your consideration, at that stage we were aware that evidence was being led through the hearings panel on stage 1. And at that stage, it was just the decision that we put forward, and you supported that we retained the Lifestar and the energy and water efficient standards for the remaining zones that were being proposed through stage 2. Since that position, council officers have been aware of the evidence led and the changed position of council staff through the stage 1, and that is through evidence that has been given. In the light of that, council staff consider it would be inconsistent to continue to propose the Lifestar and energy efficient standards under the stage 2 zone chapters, because it would just be, in a way, relitigating something that's been addressed and pretty close to being resolved through the stage 1 hearings.
What was the resolution in stage 1 to Star and Lifemark? There is no decision released yet. The hearing is still ongoing. So until there is a decision released, we don't know what the resolution will be. So why would we change our position at this stage?
Well, it's a staffed change, so it's council officers' changed position, and also, I believe, being led through legal submissions as well, in terms of those 2 standards. And it's also based on the evidence that's been given. The main rationale for it is that it's more appropriate to use other methods or methods outside of the district plan I suppose, as a first measure to improving.
So Auckland, for example, use the district plan. Not very leading edge or radical. Why can't we?
I'm not actually fully up to date whether that's actually been approved.
As of Friday.
As of Friday, okay. Well, yes, I mean, the evidence that's been led through this council, through its council officers and other advisors, are that other methods are...
could you tell me what those other methods are?
Well, such as advisory and supporting information through the building code. I am aware that the Ministry for Building and Industries are looking at changing the Building Act or introducing, I suppose it's similar to building design codes, or looking at changes to the code. So that has been considered outside of, I suppose, the Resource Management Act.
So, but that's not, we haven't got any control over what MB does. They've currently got a 2-star effective building act, and yet the strategic direction talks about a high quality rebuild of Christchurch.
I mean, the option is still to retain them for these remaining chapters. What may happen is that we will end up being leading the same evidence, taking the same position for these stage 2 chapters. But there is the option of still including them and still notifying, but just recognise at this stage, I suppose my position is to try and remain as consistent with stage 1, and I suppose let that be the guiding, what's guiding us in stage 2.
I can't see the point, personally, in us being involved in all this unless we can achieve some high quality outcomes. And one of the highest quality outcomes, or one of the most desirable outcomes, would be that we actually build energy efficient homes in the rebuild of Christchurch. So personally, if we're not going to do that, I'm just happy to hand over. I mean, this is like run through how you might have a district plan in the absence of an RMA, really. I mean, this is what they're practicing, I suspect. But if we're not going to actually have decent homes built, which is so basic, then we might as well hand over the whole shooting box to the government and just say, here, go for it.
Okay, so Paul and then
Just as part of the urban development strategy, ID number 6.11.1 on housing, the action is to publish sustainable and energy efficient housing design guidelines specific for Canterbury and incorporate these in planning provisions and building controls. And the key progress from there is actually Build Back Smarter initiative, and it was supposed to be addressed through the district replacement district plan. So I'm quite confused the fact that as part of the urban development strategy, it says this, and then on the other hand, we're getting kickback for actually doing what the UDS is actually directing us to do. It seems quite bizarre. But this is the urban development strategy is the Greater Christchurch coming together. Government is actually involved in that process, or they get informed in that process. They've agreed to the development strategy. And the development strategy is build back more sustainable, warmer, drier homes, which the Homestar rating actually is. So we're getting told and guided by this particular plan, but on the other hand, we're getting kickback for actually following this plan.
A comment on that, when an action is put forward in a non-statutory document, it still has to be carried through and considered under whatever statutory document that's, that it's been indicated has been dealt with. So what's happening here is, whilst that principle still remains, and council officers are still in full support that that's achieved, it's how it's achieved. So the issue that we begin to look at is what is the best, most effective method. The district plan's about what we have been required to look at is whether the level of regulation that's required, or whether it's most appropriate to deal with it, to get the desired outcome through the district plan. It may be, and as my understanding, now I am not part of the evidence for stage 1, I will state that, so I'm only making these comments based on my understanding of where that is, and it would be more appropriate that those who have provided that to come and speak to you. But what I can say is that in the process, consideration has been given, and that because there are other methods to maybe to achieve those outcomes, that they've been considered as more appropriate at this stage, or the level of regulation.
But then tell me the other methods, because I'm not seeing those other methods. That's the difficulty I have.
So the other methods can be through the building code, through design. Yeah.
We can't change the
No,
building
that's
code.
right.
So
Yeah.
we don't have that method. What's the next
So
one?
in time, so no, that's right. I mean, at this stage, all the decision is to rely on maybe future changes, or that may or may not happen. Equally, the council, we do have design guides, or we do have advisory, so you can still promote, you can still advocate and promote very strongly, and hope that the market will begin to pick this up. That has been, and yes, that is the always with design guides. The issue is the fact that they don't get taken up by the market,
Exactly.
and that is the risk. So.
Just given the
Yeah.
pushback from the ministers on this, what do you think the chances are of the change in the building code, given one of the ministers pushing back is the Minister of
I
Building?
don't think we can answer that.
Yeah, we can't answer that.
I'd say zilch.
All right. We've got Glenn, then Yanni.
Just on the back of this, for me, if it is as it reads in black and white, I find it quite disturbing. So page 12 of the Minister's comments about the council apparently changing its mind over Life Park and Homestar. With what Vicky's said to me, if we didn't kind of make that explicit in our plan. We sort of have an incongruence unto ourselves, given the fact that we build housing, and our social housing, we have a partnership with LifeMark over that. I also feel that while there may be other approaches that could possibly be relied on, to me in some ways I actually see this plan, I mean, this is us, it's our voice. So maybe, you could talk about those other approaches, but this is our plan. And I know it's a takeover by this panel, but I still think we need to make explicit in this plan.
We have designed
This is aspirational.
So we have accessible city built around the fact that our population is ageing and that we are barrier free, and yet we are refusing to say that we want to build houses so that these same people who are going to use the city can actually use their own house.
We're opening 8 units built to LifeMark standards this Friday. We've been having sod turnings for numerous other units. So I'm not sure how we can have a plan that actually doesn't promote that on the one hand, and social housing, our own housing on the other, which does do that. It's just...
It is.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We're all saying pretty similar things here, but Yanni, go.
I think so. Staff have got their professional advice, which is fine. You have to realise that they're operating under the statement of expectation as being the strategic direction of this district plan. So we're in a new dynamic. We're not doing an assessment against the RMA anymore like we used to. We've got a strategic direction in our plan that says we have to minimise as many controls on development as possible. We have to remove requirements around things like urban design, sustainability. It's really obvious. So, I don't think it's really for us to start having a big debate with staff over the merits of that, because that's already been agreed by the independent hearings panel. So I think what we should be better focused our time on is why, under that statement of expectation, not minimising these things makes sense. And I think Paul's given us some really good evidence. I think we need to start getting more legal advice supporting our position, and probably some technical evidence, as we talked about when we were preparing this chapter, over why LifeMark and Homestar actually make sense from a resource management point of view. I think that's the only way we're going to win this argument. So let's focus on getting that information, supporting our case.
We want to be where we were, even though that's meant to cause dilemma and value in another plan.
Well, what we heard before is we get independent advice to support our position, because it's hard for staff to go and argue on a pure technical point of view, given the strategic direction that the hearings panel have given. But there's no reason why we can't. I mean, I suggest Vicky goes to the hearing and fronts up. I'm happy to go.
We all kind of feel the same, obviously, but there's a little point in feedback, little point in... Woo! Where's that coming from? A little point in sort of having that discussion and things if it's not going to make any difference. What is it at the moment that is causing the position of the Minister, or creating the Minister's position on rejecting or not being supportive of the position that we're taking? I'm just seeing if we can look at that and intelligently support... it's probably... Okay.
And consistent objectives, because the other one is facilitate a high quality recovery and rebuild of Christchurch, and ensure that Christchurch is a place where people will want to live.
Right.
And
Right.
now in the
Okay.
future.
So based on that, Brigitte, that's what I want to ask you, because I know that obviously you have to do things reasonably prescriptively within the systems and processes you've got. Earlier we talked about how the policy, the land policy statement around the quarrying, for example, wasn't multiple. The situation was different when that was adopted and so forth. Could one not apply the same sort of argument with regards to the amount of building and new houses and rebuild going on in Christchurch now, that it had never been envisaged perhaps that there was this degree when perhaps the building code, for example, if you want to use that as a measure, or the Minister's using that as a measure, because it's totally contrary to the points that Vicky has just laid out with regards to making all the points that Vicky's made, about it being a great place to live, houses that people want to live in. Can we not use a logical...
That has been done.
Yeah.
in stage 1 in support of these rules. And still there has been a movement towards having the regulations removed and moving towards, as is said here on page 12 of the Minister's comments, where council's experts are changing position more towards other methods or other assessment matters. So what is being proposed here is to be in parallel with what's being discussed under stage 1 in relation to the same rules. But you have every right to reconsider the matter when it comes to stage 2 because it's a new set of rules. All I can say though is that it's highly likely that the questioning and the evidence potentially and the mediations will go the same way as they have in stage 1.
How have we changed our position? I mean, this is something we've said from day one. I don't understand.
This is the difference between council changing position, and this is really just coming through evidence being led through stage 1. So there's quite a big difference there between what you notify and what you agree to get to that point compared to what is being led by officers and expert witnesses. So when they're producing evidence that and going through mediation, that is where positions change. And that is just part of the process.
But there still has to be consideration of the statement of expectations, and as it has been explained to you, this hearings panel is placing quite an emphasis on the statement of expectations. So there has been evidence also, alternative evidence that's been given by other witnesses to say that this is incongruous with the statement of expectations. In the Minister's comments, he writes, the inclusion of additional layers of housing provisions through the draft residential proposal will add unnecessary constraints to achieving the Crown's housing objectives and goals. Despite the direction provided by the decision on strategic directions proposal, the draft proposals remain confusing and overly prescriptive, which is why
Savings through,
but this is your decision is to decide whether or not you accept the officer's recommendation or you want to change it. That's
So
what you
anyway,
need to
guys,
do.
in a bid to conserve bullets and stop wasting time, we're all saying the same things. The question is, do you or do you not want to pick this battle here? It appears that there's a majority of people saying, yes, you do want to pick this battle, which in turn means that we just go back to what we had originally said. So let's just do that now and put it to a vote. Well, are you trying to change this, Ali? Because we're actually agreeing with you. So I just don't want to waste any more time.
If we have to, we have to change the planners. What we said is we may need to change the planner giving evidence, and we may need on this one also to get different evidence or different planners before the. Are we then just going to be criticising? No, this has been our consistent position. We're talking about there's 4 elements in his statement of expectations. 2 of them say minimise red tape. And one of them talks about a high quality recovery and rebuild of Christchurch. They're actually completely contradictory. And so we're going for the high quality one, and he's saying don't do anything.
Yep.
Strategic directions as the first thing that the independent government appointed hearings panel did. So they now set the framework for staff who were put in the really difficult position of having to argue and actually give evidence based on a strategic direction, which wasn't something that we'd signed up to as a council. It's something the hearings panel signed up to.
I think we are. Okay. So effectively, you need from us then to just to put to a vote that we revert to what we originally had.
Yes, we need to pass a motion that recommendation 108 on page
117.
On page 117 of the table.
Just change the words from delete to retain.
Yeah, retain. Change the word delete.
Change. Yeah. So we replace
delete
delete
retain.
with retain.
Yeah.
Cool. Retain the following built.
And it may be that Vicky should give some reasons, like she did just before. That should be recorded.
Do you want
Well,
commentary?
we've taken
report?
down all of your reasons as you've been speaking.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yep, so for the reasons
I just need to see
articulated.
that that's correct before you vote on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you writing that up? That we can just have retain the following built form standards?
With a heading of residential, please. Right, you've got quarrying there? Yep, that's right.
Yep.
So you've got...
Residential 6.2.3, recommendation 108 on page 117.
You
Change the
don't need
legislation.
those numbers, 6.2, 6.3. It's going to get quite confusing. I would just say recommendation 108 on page 117, change the word delete to retain. That's right.
All right, well, tell you what, I will. Vicky's moved it. You can second it, Glenn. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.